Welcome back to My Dad Watches The Bachelor. I'm Meredith, and I'm here with my co-host, my dad.
Well, Meredith, how are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, we're recording at 10:05 on Thursday night, so we've just experienced the glory that is Claire's love story. It's fresh in our minds. We've had no time to think about what we want to say. This is all spur of the moment. I'm ready for it.
Well, and congratulations to Claire and Dale. We think, I'm not so sure that they'll end up together, but they seem very happy now.
Yeah, they seem to be doing well. We can get into it, but I'm very excited to have had a 2-hour break from this week. It was nice to think about something else for a while. So I'm hoping we can continue that for a little bit for all of our listeners.
Well, throughout the program, my college buddies were all texting me presidential stuff, and I texted them. I asked them why they weren't watching The Bachelor, and they did not respond. I don't know what's wrong with them.
Oh, well, some of us have our priorities straight, so.
Well, so pretty interesting episode. Why don't you tell us the highlights?
My first high was that we finally got to find out that Claire had not spoken to Dale pre-show at all, but that she was hardcore stalking his social media, which I found very relatable. I think that's pretty normal for most girls these days. Before you go on a date with a guy or before you meet him, you're going to look at his Instagram and decide whether or not you like him. So I just found that interesting.
Stalking is pretty normal, you're saying?
Yeah, it is. It's very normal. You can make a decision about a guy based off his social media. It can make or break him. And I think that it's relatable.
Okay, well, that's fine. I guess I'm not totally convinced that they did not have communication, and I guess that's because when we looked at the upcoming next week's program, they seemed a little unsure about how they were going to answer that question again. But I guess we'll find out.
I think that was just convenient editing.
Well, they've been good at throwing curveballs this year, so maybe that was convenient editing.
Yeah. Okay. What are one of your highs?
So, I guess something that I enjoyed, and I probably shouldn't have enjoyed it, was the fact that I think at least two of the bachelors seem to actually have feelings, and maybe this should come into right reasons. I don't know. But the fact that Jason and Canadian Blake seemed genuinely upset that Claire was going down this path. And again, I empathize with poor Jason, who had the date from hell and had to go through that whole psychological investigation that Claire put him through. I don't know if I should be calling it a highlight since they seem to be in some pain, but I did appreciate the fact that they seem to actually care about this a little bit. And I really like when Jason was saying, it's someone's messing with my feelings, I'm going to freak out because, he's a former football player and he looked a little bit dangerous.
I think that Claire really messed that guy up with their first one-on-one. Like, she forced him to talk about his feelings, and now he doesn't know how to turn it off. It was just a recipe for disaster, and that I don't think that boy's going to do well with Tayshia.
No, I kind of doubt he's going to be around for the long term, and I'm not so sure about Canadian Blake either.
Yeah. Well, one of my highs was finding out that Claire's parents are named Lily and James. Do you know who else's parents are named Lily and James, Dad?
I think that was a Harry Potter reference, was it not?
Yeah. It's Clary Potter.
I did take note of that. That was, I thought, a little bit amusing.
Yeah, I also thought it was interesting that Claire's parents had met once before. Did she say they got engaged? I kind of stopped following. I just realized that Claire was basically saying that they had very little time together before they knew that they were getting married to each other. And I'm like, so the apple does not fall far from the tree.
It looks like she's proceeding to make mistakes from her family as well. And one of the things that I sort of enjoyed, and you know that I'm a big sports fan, so the whole situation with Tayshia just struck me as Claire was the starting pitcher in the World Series. She's given up 3 runs. She's thrown 2 wild pitches. She's hit a batter, and the manager's coming out and taking the ball away from her and saying, "We got to go to the bullpen here." And in comes Tayshia, and we got a tough situation here, Tayshia. Take the ball and see what you can do with this lineup here. So that struck me as sort of a good. Tayshia's coming in as the relief pitcher to try to settle down things here.
Yeah, she's going to save the day. I have faith in her. She's a cool chick.
I don't know her from Eve, but she seems very nice.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any other highs?
I don't have any other highs. Unless you want to call the premature fantasy suite a high. I don't know where that falls in the show.
Well, my last high was Chris Harrison trying to hide his shock, maybe disgust, when Claire says that she and Dale said that they loved each other on their one-on-one. His face was just pretty priceless. It just kind of looked like a disappointing father to me.
Well, transitioning to lowlights then. My other sports analogy for the evening is you watch football because I'm a good parent, but a good football game is one in which you really don't notice the referees being that involved. And in my view, a good bachelor or bachelorette episode is one in which you don't notice Chris Harrison being that involved. And unfortunately, Chris Harrison's fingerprints were all over this show. And I'm being a bit unfair in that this was a totally weird show and it needed some direction. But I felt like he was providing a little too much guidance to Claire and Dale throughout this. Who knows what goes on behind the scenes, and maybe that's what had to happen. But too much Chris Harrison for me tonight.
That was a low for me too. I said Chris Harrison is stirring the crazy pot with Claire. He's just like, I feel like he has the evil laugh going on, stirring his little witch's brew, and he's like, "Oh, you and Dale love each other? Prove it. Get engaged tonight. Like, let's see if you're all talk here." It's just like, and literally never even crossed my mind sitting down to watch this episode that Claire and Dale would be engaged at the end of the night. That just was not on my radar at all, and it just seems way too excessive.
Well, you knew that Tayshia was showing up. How do you think we were getting rid of these people?
I thought they were just going to date.
Well, that would have been a normal thing, and the dad would approve of that. But this is not a normal show, and these are not normal people. So,
I guess I overestimated Dale's sanity. I did not think he was on the Claire Crawley level of crazy to get engaged after 12 days, but apparently he is, and that's why they belong together.
Well, let me ask you this generational question, because when I was engaged, and it seemed like people of my age, when we got engaged, we would get engaged for 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, for what seems to be a short period of time in relation to what people get engaged for these days. For all I know, Dale looks at getting engaged to Claire as, that's dating. We'll do this for a year. We'll do this for 2 years, and then we'll figure out what to do. Am I off base there, or what? It just seems like younger people get engaged for a year and a half now.
Well, I would say younger people are having longer engagements, but when it comes to Bachelor Nation engagements, I think Dale realizes that that's more of just like an agreement that we're going to date and try this out. But no one's too shocked when a year or two down the road when the engagement gets called off.
Okay, well that's my observation. I'm more of I'm a traditionalist in that if you're going to get engaged, you're expecting to get married. 6 months would be sufficient for the planning, and then let's get it done.
Well, okay. My other low here is that we don't get to see the guys confront Dale after Chris Harrison pulls him out and he has his one-on-one and his fantasy suite date. Like, Dale never gets to see the guys again. I was really excited for Canadian Blake and Jason to go crazy on Dale. I thought that was going to be really interesting to watch, and they just kept him separated for the rest of the episode. It was very disappointing to me.
Yeah, maybe they were doing it for his safety. I think Jason, looked like he was about to turn into the Incredible Hulk. He's going to freak out and turn green and rip off his arms or something. Not that Dale's a pretty big guy too, but Jason looked a little bit scary there. That would have been a fun one.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have any other lows?
The lows I've got are, I've got several Chris Harrison lows of early on in the episode. He comes in and tells Claire that he wants to have a serious one-on-one talk. And of course, we have all these cameras all over the place, and it's going to be seen by millions. To me, that just seems very silly, since there are really no one-on-one talks there. I was amused when I think it was Chasen that was saying that when Dale had not come home that night, and it was the next morning, was saying that he didn't think Claire was the sort of girl who would have an overnight visit this early in the game. He must not.
Must not have watched Juan Pablo's season.
Yeah, I mean I don't have that many memories of this show, but that's one I do have. So I thought that was sort of silly, and I thought, excuse my language, I thought Chris Harrison was kind of a dick for trying to scare the hell out of Claire at the altar there. When Dale hasn't shown up and we hear these footsteps, and it's Chris Harrison looking very serious, trying to scare the bejesus out of poor Claire, saying, making her think that he's not going to show up.
Yep, I completely agree. I gave Chris Harrison my wrong reason of the episode just for that moment. He made her cry just because he thought she thought Dale wasn't coming, and he's like, no, we're just so proud of you. That's a douchebag move, Chris Harrison.
No, I think you're in the wrong reason. That's a good place to put it as well. So, all right, that's all I got.
Okay, well, we're already in the wrong reasons. What are your wrong reasons?
Wrong reasons. I had more Chris Harrison. The Chris telling Dale that Claire is waiting for a proposal just to see him sweat. He seemed to be enjoying that a little too much. They made us wonder whether this engagement would actually come off, and I think after they got engaged, they were all giggly, and Claire was saying, "I saw this coming," and Dale kept saying, "I accepted it." I thought that was sort of funny. He accepts it. She saw it coming. And I don't know where to put this, and I guess since we're saying wrong reasons, and the mom is going to look at me funny when I say this one, in that this is the Bachelorette. It's Claire's show. She's pretty much controlling everything up until the point where she's the one that has to stand there waiting for the guy to show up with the ring. Now, the fact of the matter is, when I proposed to your mother, I think she was a little bit antsy because she thought she should be able to propose to me. And I said, no, it doesn't work that way. This was back in the dark ages, but it struck me as strange that the Bachelorette pretty much controlled all the levers and everything that was happening right up until that point. And then she's the one sweating, wondering whether Dale is going to show up or not.
Well, to be fair, she's wondering if Dale's going to show up or not and propose after 12 days. I think that's like a valid thing to sweat.
Well, the whole thing is crazy, but it just seems to me that she should be the lead crazy person here and be able to go up to him and say, "Hey, I'm proposing to you, big boy," and take the lead there just because it's her show.
Yeah, I think she'd still be sweating it though, because she doesn't know what he wants to do. That's why she cried one time, because she was like, I don't want to make him feel all this pressure that he has to propose. She just wanted to be with him. So even if she was going to be like, female power, I'm going to propose to you, she would still be freaking out whether or not he would actually want that.
Yeah, probably. I agree with that. It just struck me as a strange shift in the way the power worked there.
Well, that's how it always is. But usually it's, like 10 weeks down the road and you have two guys and they both want to propose to you and you get to dump one.
Well, and usually I have issues with how grovelly the guys get during this whole thing anyway. So maybe it worked out for the best there. But I'm sure we'll get to see some groveling with Tayshia.
Yeah. The season is young. We still have so much ahead of us.
Lucky us. Did you have any right reasons of note?
I actually had a few. I have to give it to Claire and Dale. I think it's ridiculous. It just seems too rushed to me, but they found what this show is about, and I truly wish the best for them, and I hope it works out, because if it doesn't, Claire might blow her brains out.
Yeah, well, that's as far as the right reason, I guess that's fine for this crazy show in this compressed time frame.
Mm-hmm. My other is Bree and Chris repping from The Bachelor Presents Listen to Your Heart. They got to perform for Claire and Dale's date and promote their music. I know that you didn't watch Listen to Your Heart, and neither of my roommates did either, but I enjoyed the show, so it was nice to get to see them again.
Well, I have no idea who they are, but you know that I'm a big fan of live music, so I did enjoy the fact that coincidentally Dale and Claire were able to find a live band to sing to them while they danced around, so that was nice.
Mm-hmm. And my last right reason is to Canadian Blake, because I thought it was really sweet that he said he bought a book on dementia and Alzheimer's before the season started so that he could do some research on it to try and be Claire's fairy tale for her. It just seemed very sweet to me. Like, what a pure soul. However, I think he might freak out when he realizes he hasn't done any homework for Tayshia, and he's going to be at a disadvantage now. But it warmed my heart that he was trying so hard for Claire.
And as a reminder, isn't Canadian Blake the one that Claire admitted to actually having some contact with before the show started?
Yes, that is correct.
But for the time being, we'll assume that's the only one, although I'm skeptical. Color me skeptical.
I don't know. I believe Claire. She's very upfront, and I think that she would have admitted to it, because she doesn't really seem to care what people think about her since she got engaged after 12 days on this show and just blew up The Bachelorette.
The only other thing that I had that I'll throw out there is a right reason is the guy that you initially picked as the villain, Bennett.
Yeah.
He seemed to be, to me, very honest and pleased that Claire was leaving, and that he basically said, hey, we never made a connection. Bring on the new girl.
Yeah, I feel like that's how most of the guys were feeling.
Except for Jason and Canadian Blake.
Yeah, they were losing it a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you have any other right reasons?
No, I always struggle on that right reason. So
well, our Claire cry count for this week hit an all-time high 7 times. I'm hoping that we don't have this cry count anymore. I'm personally not really happy that we're going to see like an interview with Claire and Dale next week. I'm really ready to put this past us, but I don't think that she's going to beat 7 cries next week.
No, and I know very little about Tayshia, but just from what I've seen from her on the previews and everything, she does not strike me as a big crier.
I don't really remember her crying that much, so hopefully we can put the cry count to rest now.
Well, I appreciate you keeping up with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think considering, I guess no one left from last week except Dale and Claire, there's really nothing to update on our picks.
Yeah, I still only have 1 pick.
And I have 3, but Jason's looking very shaky.
Unless Chris Harrison said that things were going to happen, and when he pulled Tayshia aside, in the next time on, he pulled her aside and said things were changing. So I think that means they're bringing in new guys and hopefully bringing back some of my picks. Fingers crossed.
And if the existing guys were upset that this journey's not been the way they've expected it so far, I can only imagine what they're going to think when they bring back some new guys that throw in the mix.
Yeah, I'm sure that they'll just be thrilled.
So, who is your MVP?
Well, Twitter said it best. America has been clear. We want this reign of tyranny to end. It's time for a peaceful transition of power so we can move forward with the leader we trust. Tayshia Adams is the MVP of this week. She's here to pull us through this rut. We are looking to brighter and better days in the future, and I am excited to see what she has to offer us for the rest of the season.
Well, I'll toast to that. Cheers.
So, do you have any fatherly advice to wrap us up?
Well, usually, I have to sleep on the fatherly advice, but a couple of things pop into mind. Number one, I really didn't know what to make of Claire's desire to find a man that exhibited her father's qualities, and I honestly don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So, you just follow your heart, and that's probably more important than trying to find someone with your father's qualities.
I will not settle for anything less than a man that will podcast about The Bachelor with me.
Those men are hard to find, so good luck with that. I put you be careful to not come across as too suffocating of your man or your significant other. In that, I just worry that Claire is going to be she just strikes me as the sort of person that if Dale goes away for 2 hours, she's going to be calling him on the cell phone saying, "Where are you? When are you going to be home?" And I worry that she's just going to be a little too much there. So, and maybe I'm totally off base. Don't know, but be careful about that. Claire said one thing that was certainly a red flag, I would think, to many people when she was, I think, during one of the 7 cries she was having, maybe with Chris Harrison. She said, "I've literally begged guys to love me." Don't do that. That's not good. You don't want to beg guys to love you. Guys don't beg girls to love you. No, don't be begging. Relationships have to be comfortable for both people.
So. Yeah, it's dating 101. The less you care, the more power you have. And Claire obviously never learned that.
Well, I'm not a proponent of caring less, when I'm just saying let's have some balance and some sanity, and I do worry whether Claire will be able to have a long-term relationship with Dale. But fingers crossed. I hope they get along swimmingly.
She needs to learn that we need the guys to be begging us to love them. Turn the tables on them, Claire. Come on. You're a strong, independent woman.
Let's just all get along here. No, we don't need to be begging on either side of it. Come on.
Woman power.
Woman power. Well, that's all my fatherly advice. We need to thank The Mesh for hosting our podcast, and you can see lots of other great podcasts on The Mesh. Thanks to our producer, Moose, for staying up with us this evening and recording late into the evening.
Yes, thank you so much. We will be back at our normal Wednesday episodes next week as The Bachelorette returns on Tuesday night. We don't even have to wait a full week to see Tayshia. Very exciting. So join us next week, and you can hear all about the start of Tayshia's season from the right perspective and my dad's.